Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. Hope everyone's doing good. It is Sunday at about 11:15. So yeah, it's a nice. Well, weather is not so great. It was really amazing this weekend, or this, I should say, the end of last week, Thursday, Friday. It was pretty beautiful out, and it's been pretty gray, very, very gray and lots of overcast since Saturday, but at least it's not raining, I guess. But I hope everyone's doing good. So, yeah, I've been doing some new formats here with the videos and the shows. I've been diving deep into all of my purchases that I made last weekend. I went to this big giant sale at Opera House Video in Belfast, and then after that, I went to Bangor and I went to Bull Moose and I bought another stack of glorious Blu-rays. I did buy some Blu-rays also at Opera House Video, so very very cool. And it's been awesome. I got most of the movies I bought were DVDs, but I did get quite a few Blu-rays at both places. So very very cool. The other thing that was fun this weekend was on Friday we played had a quantum show at the Hot Hill Tavern in Thomaston, which is a really cool place. It's a new restaurant. It's more of a pub, and they just started doing live music like in August, and it used to be under a bunch of different names. It used to be back in the day. It was Billy's Tavern, and it was kind of a big kind of destination to see live music, and to if you were playing in a band, it was always usually a great gig to play there. I used to go back quite a few years ago. I used to go there to see music and saw some really great bands, and it was great. It was always packed and just kind of nuts. And and then I also played there a couple of times, played a couple of gigs there, and it was always super fun. They closed, and then it was bought by this local brew pub called Threshers that has a location in Searsmont, and then they took it over, opened it as another location, and it was cool for a little while. But I don't know, a lot of things didn't come into play. I feel like they never really promoted shows. They didn't really have a kitchen. Couldn't serve food, and it was cool, but it was like, I don't know. It felt like the whole thing was kind of half-assed. They didn't really go into it and focus on making it a real business. So I don't know, and it wasn't really good turnout wise for shows. I played a couple of gigs there and went to see music there, and nobody would really go. And then it just died, and then it closed, and then this new place just opened. And I don't know, so far it's so good. They got really good pub food, like really, really good. It's a really cool atmosphere. People are really nice in there, and we played there on Friday. It was our first show, my first time playing there, and our first Quantum gig there. And it was fun. It was really chaotic in the beginning because they got hit so hard by all of these dinner parties. So basically every seat in the house was filled, and there were people waiting, and there were like these big parties you know at these giant tables. And but it was cool. Like, we played for a while, and played for about 3 hours, and ended up being pretty fun. And I like the long sets because I like, yeah, it's more work and everything, but I like that we can kind of stretch out a little bit and play more of a variety of songs and songs that have a lot of, I don't know, different things about them, especially around the tempo, like where we have like the more upbeat or more house based stuff, the more dance stuff, and then we have a little bit more of the ambient mixed in, as well as like some of the down tempo and some of the more loungy, mellow stuff. I love being able to mix it up, and then we also have some of the tunes that are a little bit more out there and experimental. So I I love the experience of being able to, kind of take our time and really try to mix things up and just try to play to kind of the audience. It was a little bit tough in the beginning because the audience, there's so many people there for dinner and whatnot, that and there was also a pretty big bar crowd. It was really loud in there, so it was like took a while to kind of get our bearings. Had a couple of sound issues in the beginning, but I felt like we kind of worked through it and then it was okay. But again, that's the thing is, you have to kind of adjust. Hopefully your shit's together enough that you can make those adjustments, because there are, you know, all those variables that are kind of out of your control. So, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and so we're gonna be back there again next month in October to play another gig. So very excited about going back there, and we'll be, got some other things I'm trying to think, trying to work on booking for the band, and so it was really great. This year has been really awesome. It's been a year, which is mind blowing to me, but it's been a year since we've released our last album. We have another one that's all recorded and ready to go basically. So we're just seeing when the time is right. In between our last album, there was probably was it like 2 or 3 years, so there was a little bit of time in between. So we'll see. See how things go when the opportunity presents itself and we feel the time is right. But I'm pretty excited that we just have this other album ready. So whenever things feel like it's the right time or whatnot, then we'll put it out. Originally, in the beginning of the summer or winter time, I was thinking of like, oh, okay, maybe I was kind of actively looking for things where I could do maybe a CD release show. And then a couple of things, we were getting some gigs coming in. I was booking some gigs, and but they were not really I felt they weren't really the right place or venue to do an album release. So I just kind of waited, and then went ahead and tried to book more gigs and all those kinds of things that involves, and it just never really came out. Nothing really stood out to me. Gig wise, that I had on the books that was good for the album release show for the second album that we recorded, Stars Beneath Our Feet, Chapter 1, which came out a year ago, and then Chapter 2, which is recorded and just kind of sitting, ready for its release. So we just decided, well, I'm in no rush, we'll just wait. And, the new album is still new, very, very new, and we have a lot of material, so there's plenty of things to do, so I have no rush. I feel not in any rush or obligated, so it will come out when it comes out. But I like that we just have something there, and it's ready to go. So very excited. And it was a really great year. I loved. Felt like we were really busy again. Got to play some new venues. Some of the highlights were definitely playing at the All Roads Festival. That was pretty tremendous. Super super fun. Had some really fun shows at the Poor Farm this year, and a few different spaces. Playing at Primo was super super fun. That was a real big highlight, I felt. And just trying some new things and doing some new, having some new shows and doing some new, taking some new chances, in different venues. So there were definitely some really cool shows and highlights and new things that we could try. And we played a few really fun shows at Gypsy Rose Tavern this year, and so yeah, lots of fun. So today's show is continuation on some of the movies I bought last weekend at Bull Moose Music in Bangor. I've been going to Bull Moose Music in Bangor the last few times I've gone, and I've been going a little bit more. Well, I've been going a lot actually, and I've been going up there, and I've been really digging that spot. They have a really great movie selection. Their music selection's pretty good too. I think their music selection's a little bit better than some other places. And so I always, when I go there, I'm always buying music too. So I I usually always pick up a couple of CDs when I'm going to Bull Moose, and I notice that they have feel like a little bit of a better selection. So, and their movie, I feel like their Blu-ray movie selection for horror movies has gotten better, especially with the exploitation, or in the exploitation world. So this was a double feature, and super, super awesome. I did a show on The Bog, 1979, really awesome. One of the most insanely low budget exploitation movies I've ever seen. Just like unbelievable, almost to the point where I was like, I can't believe this actually got made. But it was great and really, really awesome, super fun. And this Blu-ray is super cool. It's a double movie collection, and I love the artwork. There's not really any special features on here. The one cool thing that's on here is there is a little excerpt on the reviews for, especially, it's mostly centered on The Bog and the reviews that it got when it came out, and it's hilarious. Like, you can read the reviews for when this movie came out, and just how utterly uh, how the critics in every way possible just completely destroyed this movie, and even like make fun of it, of how bad it was. It's just awesome though. And the other movie that this came out, which is today's show, is Mako: The Jaws of Death, a shark movie that is so awesome and so ridiculous. Total, exploitation, super cheesy, but actually, from a technical side, I would have to say that Mako is actually a very well done movie. I was really surprised. There's a lot of scenes of where there's a lot of underwater scenes in the film, and it's really good. The cinematography is pretty impressive, and they actually used, live actors with live sharks in these tanks. So it's pretty wild. Like these, the filmmakers and the actors and the stunt people in this film actually kind of put themselves in danger. I'm a big fan of shark movies. I mean, who isn't? I saw the original. I saw Jaws in the theater probably about a month ago, and that's one of my favorite movies of all time. And so that was super awesome to see on the big screen. I love all of the the low budget shark exploitation movies, and this movie is definitely one of the best ones. It was directed by William Grafe. The cast is really great in this film too. There's a few actors in this that are pretty well known. Jennifer Bishop, Richard Jacknell, who is a really pretty famous character actor. He was in a bunch of movies in the 70s and 80s, but he's great. He's like the star of this movie. And my favorite character in this movie is this guy Buffy D, who plays this, I don't know, he's kind of like this low low grade kind of mafia guy, and he's kind of like the head of this like self-contained kind of crime syndicate guy, and he is just like unbelievable. He's like this big giant fat disgusting like gangster, and he's so larger than life, and he's kind of terrifying, and he's so hilarious, and he's so gross, but he's also so amazing. I kind of feel like his name is Buffy D. I mean, just he makes the movie. I feel he's so awesome in it, and he's just like so gross and disgusting, and then he's just like frightening. There's like some scenes of him, and I don't know if it's intentional, maybe it's just me, but there's certain scenes of him, like just the way he looks, and like there's scenes where he kind of looks in the camera, and he's just like really menacing and frightening. But then he's just like there's all these scenes of where he's like wearing these really tight clothes, and he has no shirt on, and he's just like super overweight, and he's just gross, and he's always drinking, and he's always like terrible to women, and he's just like a total pig, and just a bastard. But he's awesome. I mean, he's such a great character, but he totally steals the show. Um, this film stars Harold Sakata and Jonathan Davis Chandler and Ben Cronin. This film was directed by William Grief. I probably have seen other films of his. He was an American writer and director of many films in the in the exploitation world. He did I guess quite a few movies. String of Death in 1966, Death Curse of Tartu in 1966, and then of course Mako, The Jaws of Death in 76, Impulse in 74, The Naked Zoo in 70, Whiskey Mountain in 77, Stanley 1972. I mean, and again, like I've said a billion times, the 70s is my favorite decade for movies, and especially exclamation point in the world of exploitation. And so I have never seen any of these movies, so I have to check these out, and I'm gonna be on the lookout for Stanley Griff, or sorry, William Grief. Super cool, and the whole premise of this movie is super wacky. It's basically centered on this guy, the lead. Um, Played by Richard Jankel, who plays Sonny Stein, who's like the lead actor. He's basically this guy who through this kind of this there's a whole like this bizarre ritual circumstance which is really hard to explain. But he ends up acquiring these powers to where he can communicate with sharks, and he has this like psychic connection. And he has this experience of where in his travels he comes across this. They're kind of like this cult, and they basically worship sharks. And he acquires, just explaining this is totally insane, but he from this cult he acquires this like kind of magical necklace, and when you wear the necklace you can communicate with sharks, and they can communicate with you freely. And so he acquires this necklace, and he becomes and then he ends up having these powers of where he can communicate with sharks, and he ends up using his powers to basically kill shark hunters and people who are that he doesn't like, and he people that he has these problems with, and that he wants dead, and he uses these sharks as his like hitmen and his henchmen. It's totally freaking bizarre and totally wacky and hilarious, and but really great. And again, it's so low budget, but again, in comparison with the with the Bog, it's actually very well directed. It's actually very well directed. The quality is overall much better. Like, it seems like they had a bigger budget for this film in comparison to the Bog. For what the Bog is, which I have to say is one of the most low. I love low budget films. The I love them to death, but the this is I feel like the Bog is definitely one of the most low budget movies I've ever seen. Like, it's unbelievable. I mean, when I started watching it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this was like shot for like $60 or something. Like, that's how low budget it was. And but the production value for Mako, The Jaws of Death, is actually, it feels like it's pretty big, and that a lot. The cinematography is really great. Actually, it's very impressive. It's very well directed. The music is really cool. Everything is at a higher level. I feel like obviously you have some well established actors that have a lot of experience in this film. I don't think that was the case with The Bog. There's some acting in it that is just so horrendously bad, but again, I loved it. But the actual caliber of the actors in Mako is actually really good. They're obviously very experienced. The writing is actually pretty good. But I was really taken back by the cinematography. There's a lot of really cool shots in the movie. In particular, and also in particular, there's a lot of shots of the underwater with the sharks and with some of these characters, and it's pretty impressive. And considering that it's still definitely a low down exploitation movie, it's technically, I feel like it's done very, very well. It's very, very cool. So very cool. Very super excited that I bought this collection. It came out in 1976, and the Blu-ray transfer for these movies is really great. I got this really really cheap, so that's why I snagged it up. It doesn't have much in ways of special features, but that's okay because you get two really super cool exploitation movies for the price of one. It was like $7, and it's Blu-ray, so the quality is really great. Very very cool. And either of these movies I had never seen. I never saw Mako, the Jaws of Death. So very very cool. I would have if I had a time machine, this would be one of the things I would do would be to travel back in time to the 70s or 80s and be able to experience like going to see these movies, for the first time, especially like going to see these movies like at in 42nd Street in New York City. That would be probably the first thing I would do if I had a time machine. Just such a glorious, you know, just such a glorious period in film history, and just so much damn fun. So yeah, definitely check it out, if or check both of these movies: The Bog from 1979, The Mako, The Jaws of Death from 1976. Two fabulous exploitation movies, and definitely horror movies too. They're definitely horror movies, and super excited I got them now in my collection. So thanks again, and we will see you again. Peace.